like when you kill someone off, like either it's a catalyst for something or, you should care about them. But you're like, okay, that's nice, but
Okay, someone died. Hi, this is Juniper.
hello, this is Elle.
Welcome again to our pod, and today we're going to talk about 3 shows. Really, after finishing Moonlight Mystique and watching Poison Love, it was kind of like drama doldrums for a while. And so I called this the slim pickings, like what the best of the worst. Well, okay, maybe not the worst, but we checked out 3 shows, right? That were at the time out. Most of them are probably wrapping up or just wrapped up. So the shows that came after that we checked out are Everlasting Longing. Did I get this right? I know I keep saying it wrong because I make so many jokes about the title, which is in Chinese is Xiang Siling, starring Angelababy and Song Weilong. And then we had The Love of the Divine Tree, 仙台有树, starring our favorite wooden stick, Deng Wei. And I don't even know what the female lead's name is. She's a fairly new actress, although she actually has another show coming up with Wang Xingyue. So, take that for what it's worth. Ruminate on that. And then the third show is Kill My Sins, which is in Chinese 掌心, starring Liu Shishi and Shawn. Actually, what's his name in Chinese? I don't even know. But
I don't know.
those
I always
are
know
three...
it's Shondo, yeah.
Yeah, Shawn. So 3 shows, somewhat different. I guess they're all costume. That's the similarity. And they're on 3 different platforms, actually, right? Tencent, iQIYI, and then Youku. Those are the platforms. And so I actually watched all of Everlasting Longing and then checked out quite a bit of the other 2. You checked out a bit of each. So we're really here to kind of talk about, well, when times are tough in drama land, what do you watch and what do you get?
Well, okay, so I can give you my first impressions because I'm not as far into it. And then, obviously I may not get further, but so Everlasting Long, I only made it through I started watching the first 4 episodes and I'm still interested and I want to keep going. And so it's funny because Angelababy, I haven't watched her in anything in a very long time. And I think for a while she was she might have been banned in China for a while.
Soft banned. They just like airdropped this and the other show that she was in with someone else.
Yeah. So like the last thing I saw her in was like a Donglun drama, like modern drama, and that was a few years ago. And then so I would say okay, she's not the strongest actress, but I do like her, I think. And So Weilong, the last thing I saw him was like a film years and years ago. So I haven't seen him in anything, but I always thought he was very handsome. And you had remarked when you started watching that, oh my God, he's so handsome in this. And I think he does have this magnetic charm, even though he's not very likable in the beginning. Like, he's not meant to be likable, right? He's meant to be kind of ruthless.
Well, it's the kind of character you want. It's a romance novel, right? Like Everlasting Longing. Let's be honest. It's a romance novel brought to life in the most salacious way. Well, the actual I did read the source novel, which is very short. It's very salacious. Like, it's based on the novel called The Stolen or Kidnapped Bride. He literally is, right? Which is kind of what you see. Except in the show, I would say they infused it with too much side plot and characters. Like, the book is really just him, this like warlord type of prince.
Yeah.
Who takes her captive after the whole caravan raid that you see at the beginning. And he knows she's a woman. Like, there's no like...
Yes.
Yeah, right?
And so she's disguised as a man in the beginning. Yeah, she's
so
walking around as a man. Yeah.
Yeah, he keeps her, and that's basically the story. Her, like, trying to reconcile with that, and then she runs away at some point, fakes her own death, which you'll see if you keep watching the show. But then he finds her again and they reconcile and that's it. Like it's a very like bodice ripper, the type excuse me, now I'm all getting choked up with emotion. No, that I just have a frog in my throat. It's it really what do you call it? Hits the spot from a story perspective for that I need that fixing on my romance, like crazy romance, right? Like
Yeah.
fantasy with pretty
Yes.
people. And I would say that Everlasting Longing filled that brief from a good-looking people who fit the roles and the costumes, like the whole setting. At least, so it's a 30-episode show, so it's actually not that long. In fact, most of these Zhangxing, the Kill My Sins, is also I think 30-something episodes. Only the Divine Tree one is 40. So it's a manageable length if you want something shorter to go through. Everlasting Longing, I would say the first 20 out of the 30 episodes were pretty entertaining. You have to maybe strategically skip around a little. But, you know, two very beautiful people. And you put Weilong next to Angelababy, they look really good.
Yeah.
Acting aside, right? Even if nothing else is happening, you're like, oh, there's just kind of like implied chemistry because they look like they belong. Is that right?
Yeah. Well, okay, so it's interesting because her character, right? Like we mentioned, she starts off as people think her public persona is she's a man. Like people think she's a son because women aren't allowed to run businesses or you know work in commerce, but she's very smart and she basically runs the family business. It's like an empire. Like they have businesses all over the area. It's not like one little shop, right? So she's very business savvy. And I think what I liked in the early episodes is that even though you know she's pretty and she's meant to be his whatever stolen bride, like in the beginning they don't focus on that part, right? She's very clever and she's fighting to survive because she sees him as an enemy and she's like, I need to get home. Because he kidnapped her. So she's like, I need to get home. And so she thinks of all these ways to get away from him. And
yes, running through the desert.
Yeah, that wasn't very smart, but
just keep running. People made fun of the fact that like, oh, is he gonna just chase her across every episode? Like they're still running. They're still running. Like I thought it was hilarious.
That is funny.
But also
they
were like, oh, it's the first time where you see them actually run. Like usually in these shows, they're like people run like kind of faked run. You know what I mean? Like,
oh no, they were running.
They were running. I was like, it's a marathon.
Yeah, they were. I was like, you could probably change on that green screen and just keep going, like like Forrest Gump. Just keep running.
I was like, well, at some point, I'm like, how did they run from like lush greenery to the desert? Right?
Yes,
obviously it's an oasis, but I was like, oh, they ran a lot.
Yeah. It was So
it's
I mean,
so cheesy,
like, but it's so cheesy, but
it's
it
but
works.
good at the same time.
Yes, so I kept watching, and then I think I texted you. I was like, oh, because I know I have to switch over to check out the other shows. I was like, I kind of want to keep going, but at least in the early days, even though I wouldn't say, I think they hint that he's interested in her, but he's not like completely focused on her, right? He has other more important things to worry about as well. Things with his status within his people. So I think in the beginning it was still interesting because it's not one of those, oh, they see each other, even though it's romance, it's not like, oh my god, all I care about is love or lust or whatever, right? It was they have important things they have to contend with on their own, but at the same time they're starting to get entangled with each other, and I think that was done in a very nice way, in a way where it's believable, and then you want to see, okay, when does the romance actually kick in, for at least from where I'm sitting. So far I would say first impression is pretty good. Even though you told me by the 20th episode it's not strong. I
finished it. It, right?
Yeah.
I was invested enough to finish it and even read the novel because I was like, oh, it's truly a romance novel. Like, I mean, is it draggy sometimes? Because there's side plots, right? Like, there's like a second male lead who, oh man, that poor man has a very sad story. But he's kind of like, Mr. Unhappy, right? So I get it.
Is the princess second female lead?
Yes, I believe so. And
I told you she was creepy.
She is kind of creepy at first, right?
She's a little creepy.
She kind of is. If you think she's creepy, stalkerish, or not stalkerish, or she's just very willful, right, and does whatever she wants. She kind of does that all the way to the end, but you kind of feel sorry for her at the end because it's like a love square. No, it's a love string. Like you know how like someone likes someone who likes someone else, and then they can't have them, so everyone kind of settles a little bit, but then nothing. But yeah. Yeah, so if you watch it to the end, which I think of the three, you're probably more likely want to watch Everlasting Longing for a easy time passer, right? And the guilty pleasure. It's a guilty pleasure. Let's put it that way. Definitely you'll see what I mean, and then we can compare notes. I'll just make a point of the fact that also people always say how, oh no, it's before the show came out, right? They're like, oh no, Song Weilong and Angelababy, they're gonna look great, but my God, it's gonna be no acting. I disagree. I actually thought Song Weilong's acting was pretty good.
Yes.
Is it really great? No, but he emoted the way I would expect his character to emote, right? Like he's a young man, has hormones and whatever. He's like, I'm like, oh, this is normal. Like I don't feel like, oh, he doesn't know what he's doing. He's like, wooden or forcing it. Angelababy, on the other hand, I have to say, yeah, she has like two expressions. It's like she has this bewildered look on her face half the time. And I don't know if it's because her eyes are too big or I mean, maybe she's probably had work done, right, on her face. So maybe that, how they say sometimes Botox and stuff interferes with your ability to emote. So that's it. But that said, she just has to look pretty when they're having romantic scenes or look like kind of, pained, right, by conflict. So it's okay. I buy it. I'm okay with that,
Yeah.
So I had no issues. And some of the side characters are pretty, like the stories are also, like even the princess and the second male bodyguard story is pretty salacious in its own. Could have been a separate story on its own because it's not in the novel. They made this up. And then the Song Weilong's character's best friend, the other kind of lord, he's very good looking. I was like, oh, who's this guy? He's very pretty, right?
Yes. He had such a short scene, but I remember him, yeah.
Yeah, he has a little bit more later. He has his own tragic story, but at the same time, like, oh, this guy's very good looking. Like, I don't. So it's a what is it? Feast for the eyes, I guess, and spot when it comes to cheesy romance. So, and like I said, if you don't have the time to invest in full watching 30 episodes, you can very easily strategically skip. Or just watch all the previews for the episodes. I think I told you that. I said, if you watch all the previews for each episode, you'll kind of get all of the highlights and know what's going on. And then you can go back and be like, oh, I want to deep dive in this section, right? Like, there's obvious places where you're like, oh, I want to deep dive. So, yeah. Pretty interesting, average cheesy show.
How did it do in China? Did it do okay or
no? Because it wasn't a big show, but I think people who noticed it while they're like, oh, for the same reasons we were talking about it. But it's worth checking out. Just don't have realistic expectations of anything. Other than
them surviving the desert was already not believable. I was like,
I love how she stabbed him in the leg while he was trying to say, and then he had that expression on his face. It was like, what the heck, man?
Yeah, he was like, "What's wrong with you, woman? Why are you so deranged?"
Yes,
she's like, "I just need to get away from you."
So speaking of deranged, maybe we transition now to Kill My Sins.
Yes.
Sorry.
So Kill My Sins, I watched the first 2 episodes. So the story is completely different. Actually, you can probably set it up better than I am, but in the beginning, basically, Cici, I'm saying her name in Cantonese.
Cecilia Liu.
Yeah, so she supposedly is a psychiatrist, but like people think she's a witch in this town or city, and so it starts off that way where you're like, oh, she has this ability to read people's dreams, but then very quickly by the second episode they kind of reveal like everything is a farce. But she does have very good deduction skills, I would say. Like, so
she's like the mentalist. No.
yeah, Sherlock Holmes, but using it. So right as this episode 2, it's not clear what her plan. I mean, it sounds like she's trying to plan some sort of revenge or something, but it's not
Yep.
clear. And she actually has a little group, and I said to you, I was like, "What is this? Ocean's 11?" Like, she has a little group of people who are working behind the scenes with her. So on the surface, they're all unrelated, but they've been infiltrating different places in, I guess, the government. And I don't know if it's solely the government, but they're
Yeah.
trying to solve something. And so they're planting things in people's heads, they're planting evidence, and that's as far as I got. And I would say as of episode 2, it was still intriguing. Stylistically, there is a little bit of the story writing is not very linear. They show a lot of random flashbacks where you're like, wait, is this present day? Like your brain has to pay attention actually, because you're like, what am I watching? And you realize, oh, they're revealing something to you that is not in the linear storyline. But so far, like, I haven't watched Cecilia Liu in a drama in a while. She's had many dramas in the last few years, but I don't think they were very successful. But she is very popular in China.
The journey, our journey to love or whatever, the one where she was in last year with Liu Yining was a big hit.
Oh, okay. Okay. So I didn't see that one. Yeah. So I would say it's been a few years since I've seen her. And I mean she's very striking. Like as soon as she's on camera, she's very striking. I think I was telling you, I think she's really pretty, and I think that helps. Like, but over time, like acting wise, I don't know if it will be as compelling to watch because so my first impression is that already I find her character to not be that interesting because I feel like she has what's it called, heroine's armor, like. Yes. Like there's so many threats that happen in the first 2 episodes, right? Knives to her throat, Emperor wanting to, execute her, all these things that would make you quiver. And I feel like she's too calm, and it's almost like, I know I'm gonna get out of this situation. There's no real like danger that you feel of, oh my god, this guy has a knife to my throat, I could die any minute. Like I don't feel the tension, is what I'm trying to say. And so I feel like when you see a character who is not even gonna get a cut or blemish from this interaction, it's not as compelling because you're like it's gonna be smooth sailing through. I don't know how it ends, but you're gonna feel like every obstacle that comes in her way, she's gonna survive somehow and win, and it's too apparent, it's too in your face. So that's my first impression.
So, do you feel less compelled, or do you still feel compelled to keep watching after 2 episodes? Now, time aside, right? Would you, if you had all the time in the world, keep watching this? Want to find out more, or you're like, I can take it or leave it?
I feel like it's a take it or leave it, to be honest. Even though I did watch up to episode 2, because also the male lead, right, Shawn. So far, he's not very likable. I mean, he's not meant to be. They don't have very pleasant interactions in the beginning, which is
They're
fine.
like out to kill each other.
Yeah.
People are like, what kind of new romance CP is this?
But you know how when we were talking about Christmas in Connecticut, like I was like 2 con artists getting together. Yes. I feel like it's a little bit like that here too, because like I said, by the second episode, they reveal more about her background. It's a little bit shady, and then his background is also kind of shady because he has it sounds like a very sad background, and she immediately sees through
like
it.
The slums.
Yeah, like almost like a slave or something, right? So like she sees through it right away and calls it out, and so he feels almost I don't want to say belittled. I think he feels exposed by her.
Naked.
Yes, yeah.
Like you see through me, and I don't like that vulnerability.
Yes. So in the beginning, he's not meant to be likable because he's kind of scheming, and you don't know yet what his long-term schemes are. So I think, if I drop it, it won't feel
You'll probably forget this show existed if you drop it. It's the reality.
Yeah. But I guess like I could watch if I had time, right? If I didn't have other shows, I could watch a few more just to see like what is the initial barrier that they need to overcome? And then maybe you can drop it and be like, okay, I got some closure. Like right now, it's too slick, I think. And then when I mean slick, it's not production slick. It's the storytelling that's too slick for me.
So you hit upon a lot of the sentiments I had. So I made it further than you. I just checked. I'm actually up to episode 10, but I don't intend to keep watching. In fact, I'll just look for clips of it online to see how the story progresses. Here's I pretty much echo your sentiments in that I don't actually find Ilsa pretty, but she's very elegant in some ways, right? She doesn't look like just any, demure flower on screen you see sometimes, right? She has presence. The problem with her character, like you said, is the plot armor, and she seems like a femme fatale, but like a B tier femme fatale. Does that make sense? Like, and maybe that ties into the slickness, the try too hard slickness of the script. So I can't tell if it's her acting choices or the character as written, because I watched the first few episodes going, I want to see what happens, even though these people are kind of like, oh my God. Like you said, it's very jarring to watch the show because they don't reveal the important stuff until very later. And you're like, oh, okay, got it. But it's a show. Like, it's not a movie, right? You don't have the patience to wait that long for them to reveal. And then when it does kind of reveal, like, what the truth is, it doesn't have the same dramatic, like, it doesn't land as well, dramatically speaking, by that time. At least for me as the viewer. You're just like, oh, okay, well, you explained it, but who cares, right? I found her deranged at some point, the character. And I think that's what I mean by the B tier femme fatale. Like, there's like, you read somewhere, someone said, like, this is almost like a film noir, except it's not film. And there's good film noir and bad film noir, right? Good film noir is like, there's so many layers to the person. You never really know what's going on, right? Like, they don't have the I'm guaranteed plot armor or not. Although, in fact, most in film noir, everyone dies tragically because it's film noir.
Right.
Whereas in B tier film noir, it's like you're trying to put on you're mugging very hard to be this cool veneer of a person who's mysterious and plotting and so sexy. Like, I'm already changing the way I talk, right? If I were to mug that way. But it's so fake in some ways. Like, there's no layer. It's not depth in you. You're just pretending to be this person. And I feel like that when I watch this. I'm like, what is wrong with her? Like, Shawn, those characters, so I've never watched him in anything else. But I have to say I like him in here. Part of it is probably because he reminds me of Ju Ji-hoon, this Korean actor that I like, who's right now got, like, I think 4 shows out. One of which is the Netflix Trauma Code show, which is very good, by the way. You should watch that. It's very entertaining. There's no romance in that. So, like, I feel like as annoying or evil seeming at first he is in the first 2 episodes, not evil, but like mean, right? Mean spirited, don't care, hard.
Yeah.
He seems much more genuine than her character, if that makes sense. Earnest.
Yes.
How's that? It's an earnest character. Like, kind of like how to read him. With her, it's all veneer.
Yes.
Right?
Yes, you don't, at least in the beginning, and I don't know if you ever get to it, but like, she is not showing her real self. Or maybe she doesn't have a real self, but in the beginning,
that's the problem.
It's all showmanship, and you're like, okay, you're good at this. You're good at your job. Let's call it a job, right? Like, you're good at what you do, but who are you? Like, who are you as a person? And I think in at least the first 2 episodes, it's still not known. And if I didn't know, if I didn't have your thoughts on it, right? Like, I would watch it and think, oh, they just won't reveal it yet. Or they haven't revealed it yet because you're watching her. You're basically watching her as you would the other people. You're like those villagers, who see her as like, oh, how is she able to read our minds? And that's why she's scary, because she has these like unnatural powers. But if you're telling me later on this is all she is, and there's no further depth, then then it's not worth watching.
Yeah, so she tries to get more depth. I think they reveal kind of her backstory by episode 10, but episode 10 is where I am, and it's a third out of a 30 episode count, and I'm still like, I don't like her character that much, then there's no point going on, right?
Yeah.
And the story is just getting more and more layers of onion and peel, and just like, this is getting ridiculous. I get it. You fought boss level 1. Now there's the next level. Like, it's like the Russian egg thing, right? Where you nest it. Oh, I uncovered this. Oh, but there's someone else behind that. Like, great. But I don't know. It's a little bit of a combination of too slick, try hard, maybe acting choices and the script. Like just the way the storytelling happens. It's not
Mm-hmm.
engrossing. At first, in small bits, like when you first watch, you're like, "Oh, this is pretty interesting," and then too long, you get over satiated. You're like, "This is not interesting."
Yeah.
Too much fried food, basically, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think they try to be shocking in the beginning, right? They're like
Yeah.
right in the first scene, there's a death scene, and you're like,
Mhm.
oh, that was stunning, kind of shocking. And then and then they keep moving on, and more people die, and they're not even people you care about. That was the problem, I think. Also, like they kill them. You're like, well, I don't feel anything because I don't know who they are. They're like the NPCs, and you're like, oh, they're just okay, another person
You mean
off, but
Moonlight Mystique, where every person you cared about just gets killed?
yeah, that's the
Sorry.
difference, right? Right? Like when you
Yeah.
kill someone off, like either it's a catalyst for something or, you should care about them. But no, it was just like for shock value. And you're like, okay, that's nice, but what's the point other than to show how ruthless
Okay,
they
someone
are?
died. Sorry. I just had to laugh at the way you just said that. You're like, people got killed. Yeah, okay, that was nice. Like, huh, interesting.
Only in cinema, okay? Not real
Yes,
life.
yes. Not in real life. You would not be that
Yeah.
person. So yes, I will not keep going, even though I already went a third of the way. I'm just not that hooked, right? And I don't care about the characters. I do think that if this was more of a romance focus between her and Shawn, I'd probably watch it more because I actually like them as a pair. He's pretty interesting to watch too with her.
Mm-hmm.
He's not like most Chinese actors on screen, so it's pretty refreshing. Like, you
Yeah, I
know,
can't remember. Is he from Taiwan or Hong Kong? I think Taiwan.
I think he went to Canada, so he grew up in Canada. He's not
Oh,
so
okay.
he. I think that's maybe also why he's slightly different. He comes across different, right? His
Yeah.
upbringing or environment while growing up. I don't think he was born in
Yeah.
Canada. I think he's actually Chinese, but like who knows?
Yeah, I
So
just
yeah,
didn't I feel like I should have seen him in other things, but I don't actually recall.
I
But I
don't
know
think
his
he
name.
acts. I don't think he acts a lot. I think more movies in the past, and he's pretty
Yeah,
old too, right?
yeah.
Like they're both
Yeah.
older. So anyways, enough about Kill My Sins. Last show, Love of the Divine Tree. 仙台有树. Thoughts?
Okay, so I'm 15 minutes into the second episode, so it's the not the least watched, but of the three, the one I watched the fewest minutes of. Okay, I think my impression is going to be different from your impression based on what you've told me offline. So far, I actually found it kind of entertaining. I
Mm-hmm.
don't think. Okay, so the things that I liked, at least in the beginning, is that there were actually a lot of funny moments, but they're funny from script writing, like from the setup of, I would say, the director, right? I don't think they're funny because the actors themselves are funny.
Can you give
So
an
what
example?
Yeah, so what I mean is, okay, so high level, the story is that there's a demoness and her disciple, and basically he turns on her and kills her, right? Like he
Yeah.
works with all these other people to take her down. And so she was betrayed, and so while she's dying, or I think she was dying or being destroyed, she puts a curse on his sect, I think. And so they don't kill her completely because they say, oh, we need to reincarnate her soul to bring her back to reverse the curse or to get rid of the curse. So she is reincarnated into a tree, hence the divine tree. And 18 so now it's 18 years later. So the guy who was her disciple, he's now master of the sect. And so there's a scene where he is trying to get her to be his disciple, and they said that's against the natural laws because I guess you can't. Normally your master is your master for life. You don't suddenly become your master's master. And so there's a whole scene of like the lightning is striking, like when she's doing the tea ceremony. Do you remember that scene? So like he had three other disciples, so it's like four disciples total. They were gonna like serve tea to the master. And so the first three they kind of do it effortlessly, and then when it comes time for her to serve the tea, like as she can't even bend her knees to like kneel, and so he like uses magic to make her kneel, and then she's trying to serve the tea and she can't move, and then as she puts the tray out, the teacup cracks and all the tea is spilled. And then he's looking at her, and she's like, "Oh, I guess I can't be your disciple," because she doesn't actually want to be his disciple. He's basically forcing her, and he's like, "I will gather that tea." So he uses magic to make the teacup get back together. And then as he's trying to drink it, he can't move his arm. Like all the forces of nature are trying to stop this from happening, and then suddenly lightning is striking the house. Anyways, very long drawn out explanation, but my point is, all this stuff is happening where when they meet again, I guess they try to add this lightness because she doesn't have memories of her former evil self, right? So she was an orphan, and she was brought up basically by a whole village of people who like took care of her and fed her, and so she feels very indebted to them. And so her character is meant to be very likable, I think. And so when she meets him, and he knows exactly who she is, he's been waiting for her to ripen, because she's a fruit, she's on the tree. He's been waiting for her, and he's like, oh, now's the time to bring her in so he can kind of control her, keep an eye on her. And so I would say if it was done with maybe other actors, I would feel like this setup is very cute, like very meet cute, because he also hates her in some ways. I don't know the full story because I haven't seen that much of it, but it sounds like he
Not really.
It sounds like he had some resentment because he said, "Oh, I waited 18 years." But anyways,
so you have very little context, right? So
yes,
I actually agree with you on a lot of things. I think we're actually going to say similar things in that the story setup is pretty interesting. Although the show lost me on the first 2 episodes, I actually stopped watching after the first 2 episodes initially because maybe also I had just come off of Moonlight Mystique, which is very important in my heart right now. So I'm like, oh, this show's kind of a joke, right? In that, I thought like the visuals are good, everything, the effects were fine. The story was very fast paced, almost too fast paced in the first. Like, the impression of the first two episodes is it's very chaotic, and where the heck is this going? If that makes sense. And part of the issue, but the biggest part, not part of the issue. So I stopped watching, but then I kept seeing people going, oh, but it gets so much better after episode 2. Like, okay. So I actually gave it another try at some point and watched it up to episode 6. And I do say that they go back to tell kind of their origin story, like their previous life and how they really are. What you see in the first episode is kind of not true. The fact that he killed her and stuff.
Yeah, I assumed that, by the way. Yeah.
So, and I was like, okay, the stories actually could be very interesting, but I could not fixate on the show too much because of the actors. They brought me out of the show.
Yeah.
We were concerned about Deng Wei, right? Because he's a pretty face, but he's not the most emotive, right? Expressive actor on screen. He's not the problem for me though when I watch this. It's actually her, the female lead. She seems really miscast. People will go online and say she's ugly and stuff. I don't know if she's ugly. I would say she has no screen presence for this type of role.
Yes. Yeah.
Right?
Somehow, I agree.
And her expressions are so out of character. Like, I feel like half the time she's a baby crying because her diaper needs to be changed. Like I think she has really like cheeky cheeks, like baby fat cheeks, because she's still pretty young, I guess, right? Like she's not a sculpted face, and usually you either have to be like really pretty doe-eyed, or you have to have a very sculpted features like Liu Shishi, right? To look good in like guzhong, which is costumes. She doesn't have either. And then when she tries to emote, like when she tries to laugh or cry too hard, it looks the same because her expression just scrunches together, and I was just like, she's having a tantrum. Like, does that make sense? It feels not in character for this type of character that she's playing. So then it's very distracting, right? You're watching this, you're like, oh, this is distracting. Like, what's wrong with her as an actress? So then your brain is no longer focusing. Does that make sense? So
I see what you're saying.
Acting.
Yes. So, okay, so one thing to remember, right? She's supposed to be 18. And And so there's another actress that's also a disciple, and we've seen her in other things. What's her name again?
I
Who?
me.
Yeah. So in real life, she's
Yeah.
like 16. She's probably
Yeah.
17 at this point, right?
Yeah.
So and you were saying like we both said because we really liked her in what's
The
that
double.
show? Yeah, The Double. We really liked her in that, and she was actually even younger than that one. I think she was 15, 16 when she filmed that. And you and I predict she will have a really big career because she's a child actor. And so when you said when she's on camera with the female lead, she kind of outshines the female lead, right?
Yes.
Because she has actual acting experience and she's very
Yes.
very pretty, right? For a young girl. And she would actually be the age, right? If she's almost 18,
Yes.
she would actually be the age of the main character. So okay, so not knowing the age of the actress who is the female lead, I think right now she's trying to portray this girl as just infinitely sunny, infinitely optimistic. And I think that's the character she is trying to portray, right? Despite her unknown origins, she feels very like her goals in life are very simple, right? They even say like, as the master, Deng Wei is trying to plot all the stuff because he's like preparing because he realizes she still has some powers in her, right? She
Yep.
just doesn't she's not aware of them. He's trying to plan on these things and she's just thinking like because so she's a cook at a restaurant, like that's her job, I think. And her goal is like, I want to go eat all the delicacies in the world. So in her mind she's like thinking about all the wine she's brewing, like she's like very simple almost. And so when you counter that with her acting, I think that maybe the question the issue is that you don't buy it, right? Like you're like she cannot she's too happy and she's too kind of they don't play her up as ditzy, but that's a ditzy personality to be like I'm in this
It's
really
not
weird
natural.
yes, that's what I'm saying. Like if you take a step back, right? Like she like people are chasing her down. Like she knows these demons are trying to catch her. Like she witnessed like people getting killed because they're looking for her.
You mean
And
she feels like
she's just
dumb?
like yeah, she's just like oh, like it's almost like she forgot about them
She's
like by the
dense.
second episode, now that we're analyzing it. She already
Yes.
forgot about them. She's still like, oh, I just want to get out of here. I'm like, where are you going? Like, lady, this like people are coming after to kill you. Like, you should actually put a plan together of why they're coming after me and how do I
Yes.
save my little vine. She has this little vine that lives on her body
Yes.
that protects her. But
Yes.
it's like she forgot so far where I'm at. She forgot. She's just like mad that she's being forced into this master disciple
Like
relationship.
so like I said, it's somehow they just miscast this role because she has zero chemistry with Deng Wei, right?
Mm.
The two of
Mm-hmm.
them, and as little as you watch, he's the master. He's sort of the more mature persona, right? When you go back in
Mm-hmm.
time to their origin story, she's the master in some ways.
Yes.
Right,
Yes.
so she's supposed to be more mature, but she doesn't come across necessarily. She's not as dense and goofy and like, oh my god, I don't have a brain in my head type of type. But she's still kind of like, I don't really believe you are the master either. You're not really a very solidly grounded person. And
Mm-hmm.
I also feel like at the end of the day, it just feels like this girl is a girl from California, and I think she is from California, who is cosplaying in a Chinese drama, like a cosplay at a
A
convention.
valley girl.
Yeah, but she's not a Valley Girl. She doesn't give me Valley
Oh.
Girl vibes. She's just out of place, okay? That's why I said next to her, I'm like, Deng Wei feels normal in this show almost. Although I still say he
Oh.
has like no expressions. Like he has like either no expression or too much try hard expression.
So going back to the jokes that they have in the drama, right? Another one that's just popped into my head is when she first arrived, or when all the disciples first arrived to I don't know, the house. I don't know if it's called a house, but like the place where the sect lives or trains. There are these rules on the wall, and the first rule was like you must dress up and look pretty, and then like there's three other rules I don't remember, and they're like, oh, they're looking down at themselves, and the master's like, that was the old master's rule, just ignore it. And so I was like, okay, that's kind of like haha funny, like weird, but I was like, it doesn't make sense either because if he destroyed the previous master because she was evil, like why do you keep her like
Because he didn't
rules
destroy her.
up? Oh. Okay,
Right?
see, that makes sense. Because I was like, why would you keep these rules that, first of all, don't even apply to you, but it's obviously like you're not doing anything to get rid of them, right? You didn't set up your own rules. So interesting. Okay, so that makes more sense.
So like I
But
said, the
anyways,
story
yeah.
has promise, right? It's just really hard to watch because and the production value is fine. It's just hard to watch because of the leads. It's like truly a case of miscasting, especially the female lead. That, and the director is actually the so side fact that you might not know this since you didn't watch Blood of Youth. Like I feel like 60% of the Blood of Youth support characters are in this. It's like a reunion, right?
Yeah.
Except it doesn't have the magic. You know what I mean?
Mm.
And the director directed that, and in fact when this show premiered, you saw all of the people who work with him, like Bai, VIP, like Bao Chang, like Bai Lu, Li Hongyi, Ao Pang, all of them who work with him. They all
Mm-hmm.
like basically it's like we bought out the VIP membership so people can watch. Like it's really like
To
trying to help the
support
director.
him. Yeah, that's nice of them.
Yeah, but the show didn't do as well because I think if you are truly watching a drama not because you have fan goggles on, this is not gonna work. I mean, I still maybe casually watch this if I had time to see how the story
Mm-hmm.
ends. But it's really hard to invest in the show emotionally if you can't believably invest in the main characters, especially the female lead who is an anchor in the so-called CP, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Like, oh, am I watching the show just for the side characters and the male lead? Like, and I don't even love the male lead, right? Like, the way it's just like,
You know,
and
you know what's funny? They say she disfigured him. I'm like, what? Like, okay, when she like, I guess he
yes,
looks like he has a face tattoo. He does
yes.
not look disfigured, okay? And
The
then he wears
mask is
this.
disfiguring thing.
Yeah, he wears this like Phantom of the Opera mask, and you're like, why are you wearing that? Like, are you that vain? You know what I'm saying? Like, are
Yeah,
you so vain that you need to hide like an obvious tattoo on your face? Like, yeah, that didn't make sense either because it's not like he had disgusting scars that he's
yeah,
trying to shield people from. Then I understand you
yeah.
want to wear a mask, but it's literally like just like henna on his face. And I'm like,
Yes. I was like,
okay.
I think early on when I first started, I said, oh, Deng Wei doesn't have a lot of expressions, but then they put a freaking mask on him, so it made it even worse, right? Like talk about freezing his face up with something stiff, right? Like
Yeah,
but the
yeah.
mask comes off pretty soon, so then it's okay or better, I should say. But really, he's not the problem. She is for one. So I'm very worried about the show season with Wang Xingyue.
Mm.
Um
Because we do like watching it.
yes, yes, we do like Wang Xingyue, but I worry, right? But we'll see. We'll see.
Yeah.
Maybe that's a better pairing. Like who knows, maybe they have better chemistry. Chemistry
Mm.
is a hard to pin down thing, right? So you probably won't then, based on this convo, continue watching Love of the. You have no love for this Divine Tree.
Well, I will. Okay, for sure, I want to continue Everlasting Longing. I think number two on that in the in this list of if I have to watch, I would watch Divine Tree over Kill My Sins,
Mm-hmm.
which is shocking. Which is not what I thought until we start talking. Because okay, as ridiculous as some of the Divine Tree stuff is, I do feel like the story is more compelling. It's still more compelling
Yes. Yes.
than Kill My Sins, which is all show no substance type, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Even though I like Lo Cece more, like which is surprising actually, as I say out loud. I like her more than the unknown female lead in Divine Tree, but if you're talking just from story plotting, the Divine Tree probably is a little bit more interesting. But even then, I'm like the villain. I don't know if he's the official villain. Like he's not interesting to me. He felt
He's not
very
the official villain. So that was the other
okay.
thing. He was very jarring in the first episode. It's like, what is this jokester? But it turns out he was
Yeah.
actually kind of comic relief villain. That's why.
Oh,
He's not
like
really the
he's not a
villain
good
villain.
villain. He's just
No,
like
I
it's
he's
like who is
he's
this?
a try very hard to be a villain who fails as a villain, really.
Yes, he's
So
like
it's
a
kind of
car.
funny.
He's like a cartoon villain. Like I will take them down, and then he never succeeds.
Right. So I think that's the context you're missing, and so I heard, I think they went and re-edited the first two episodes, And I think that's problematic, right? Because that means they did a bad job editing it. So it didn't draw you. Like I said, I dropped the show after the first 2 episodes, and then I gave it another chance because it was not compelling. And it's the way they probably set it up. So they must have realized their mistake, right? Once the show aired and went back and re-edited it. I'm like, but why didn't you do it right the first time then, right? Like,
Yeah.
it's hard, right? People don't have the patience to wait with this or any other show for like, X amount of time to find out, oh, it's all a ruse and this is the truth. There's a way
Right.
to do that effectively, right? Like The Usual Suspects, but this is not that. There's like a finesse to it that these people are not finessing. And maybe
And
this is not the right format.
not every show needs a twist. I think that's the
Yes.
problem. Sometimes a twist only works if, I mean, I feel like everyone tries to do a twist now, which is why some shows end so crappily, like, because they're like, oh, we can't give them what they expect for an ending. And it's like, well, I just want that. Like, why do I need to like suffer through like a horrible ending because you felt like you needed to do something smart, which was not very smart in the first place,
Right.
you know?
Right.
So
Yes.
yeah, I know what you're saying.
All right, so I guess the Slim Pickings verdict is you will, if you have to watch any of this, it will be everlasting longing.
Yeah. And then if I remember Divine Tree. Because there are a lot of shows I have liked and dropped because, I still didn't finish In Blossom, by the way.
Yes. Because of time
I don't have
constraints.
time. Yeah, time constraints. Only so many hours in a day. So, but then there's also new shows coming. So, we might just have to move on from this crop.
I've already moved on, as you know.
Yeah, you already moved on.
I'm like juggle. Watch this, watch that. I'm like, oh my god, this is like. Well, hopefully there'll be more interesting shows. So,
yeah, I'm sure they will.
The positive of this is that there's a variety even among the Slim Pickings, right? In that they're very different shows. So that's always encouraging. You don't want everything to be same old all the time.
I want to say only because this is the first time I think I watched so many different shows overlapping, and like you said, they're all costume. I feel, I don't know how people in China feel, but I feel like it would be really nice to just get away from these types, and I don't know how to explain that. Like if we talk about like film, right? Like American Hollywood movies, like when you think about plots and locations and settings, like. Is all kinds, and I feel like in China, I know it's they film a lot in the Hengden. Am I saying that right? Yeah, I just feel like visually, it is a little boring after a while, like because they're reusing. It's like a Universal movie lot, right? They just film in the same set all the time, and I think sometimes they're tied, the budgets are tied or something to film there. I think visually it's gonna, I mean, it's been what, 10, 15 years of this. I wish that they can move away, is what I'm trying to say. Like, I wish they can move away to like if you're gonna green screen half the stuff, like I wish they can move away and have like visual artists kind of create new visuals. I don't know how to express what I'm trying to say. I guess like I just realized the other day, I'm like, the architecture, I love it and all, but it's starting to actually be a little bit boring, dare I say. And I do wish there was a way to do it where the settings are more interesting. Anyways, I'm going off on a tangent, but I don't know if you understood what I was trying to say.
Understood. I don't have as big of a problem with it. I just stop watching, right? If I get oversaturated, it's really saturation. And I think there's just too much. Just American TV, there's too many shows now. Everyone's producing something, right? And it's like, but can you do it with quality? So you do have to curate it. Like this is why you watch a few episodes ago. Is this gonna work for me or not? If not, it's not worth my time. I'm not gonna waste it.
Yeah.
Right. I would say 10 years ago, if we started watching drama, I would be like, oh, no matter how good or bad, you're gonna keep till the end because you've invested in watching a drama. Like you sit down and watch a drama. That's not the case anymore. So
yeah, lots of good choices up there. So
yes. So well, with that said, then I guess once you finish, if you finish Everlasting Longing, we'll have to compare notes again. If not, hopefully we'll have something else to check out together. I'm already checking out First Frost, which It's an interesting one too, I have to say. Not necessarily good or bad, but
Should I start first, Frost?
I don't know. So it's I'll just say this. I'm not compelled to watch it, but it's watchable and the setup is interesting, but then you're like if you question anything behind you, you're like what is wrong with everyone? Is every guy in China a pervert? That I'll leave you with that. Like the girl gets like sexually harassed in every episode. You're just like, huh.
Oh,
And it's Zhang Ruonan, our favorite cold fish,
yeah. Yeah.
from my boss. So it's just like,
I
does that
don't know if
make
I want to
sense?
see that. That's not a very strong like
No, I know. I'm
recommendation.
not selling it to you, right? So I'm just like, okay. They're trying too hard again. There's just too much try too hard, I think, is the real disease here. Everyone's
Yeah.
trying to be so unique and cool and different.
Yeah. Oh
So,
well.
all right. Well, with that said, I will talk to you hopefully soon with something better to talk about next time.
Yes. Until next time. Bye.
Bye.